It's a gracious chus, and grace covered there by Oberlander is joining us. He was one of the visionaries and the inspirations for this Kylal over a year ago, and I just wanted to be Makar Toiv. It's also on the Vaad Rabbanim of the Kylal, and he's advising the Rosh Kylal Rabbi Raskin on many of the decisions we're making. So, grace and Yashikayach for your support.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to go over a little bit of Hilchot, which is basically a fourth. The Hilchot Pesach is divided in 4 parts. The Kapitel is Vehetano Estam Lefgam, Laila Seider, and Hagala. And Hagala is one of the things which is quite important for us. It's important for us for Pesach, especially people who don't have a Pesach kitchen, which there's quite a lot of people which do not have. People in Monsim is probably most of them have, but people of other communities not necessarily have a Pesach kitchen, so they have to kasher. So I want to go over a little bit of the halachas of kasher, of what we need to do, how to kasher, when to kasher, what to kasher. And it's also negaya all year round, because people go in Airbnb houses from in summer houses. Even today, I had a couple who called me because they went for Pesach. They're leaving for Pesach in a goyish house. How to go about it? It's negaya legaba bosse v'cholov. It's negaya for alle balochas. It's not hilchas el Mashiach. So let's start with some klulam of Hilchot Agula, which you came across already in the beginning of the Simon. There's a klal in halacha, kavol kachpolte. The way how it absorbed the iser, the same way you take it out. So a thing which you absorbed through fire, that means a grill, a toaster, you have to kasher it also through fire. That means you have to have a blowtorch, you have to have fire mamash to take out the blia. A thing which is got the blia through water, you have to take it out also through water, which is called hagola. That means when you take it out through fire, it's called libn. When you take it out through water, it is called hagola. Now there's different halachas in libn, there's different halachas in hagola, which we're going to get to it. If a thing became absorbed through kailarishan, that means a pot which got absorbed through fire, that means, but it was water, but through fire, that means kailarishan, you have to take it out with kailarishan. A thing which you have absorbed only kailishani, plates, utensils, was most of the time it is only through kailishani. You can take it out only by kailishani. You can take it out by kailishani avada. You can take it out by kailarishan avada. But again, you could take it out by kailishani. A thing which got absorbed through iri, you can take it out through iri also. That's the lekidus advurim of kabbalah kachpolte. What's iri? Iri means it comes from a klirishan, but it doesn't have the walls of the pot. Usually when you have a pot, the pot is hot, the walls are hot, and the walls of the pot keeps the water hot. But when you have iri, it's a machloekes acharonim, machloekes aposkam, if it doesn't have famas machamamas, or that it has tvaras makaranas. So that's iri. So again, I think this is the klal which you have to know always, constantly, kabbalah kachpolte. The way how I took it in, the way I take it out. A thing which you took out with agula, klirishan, you could take out through libn, because since libn is a higher level of agula, so therefore, if you take it out with libn, is noch besser. Now in libn we have two things. There's a thing which is called libn chumer, Lim chumar means that it is a way that it's very hot, which means, according to what the poskim say, it means that you have a pot, you boil it till it becomes red. That's called lim. It becomes mamash, the metal becomes red, or the stone becomes really red. Now, in today's day, you aren't going to have a metal which is going to become red, because the way how the metal is today's day, it won't get red, because it has to do how much air there is in the metal, the way how they produce the metal. So the way how to know what is lim gomer, and what does it mean, netzoitzes nitzrin, the poskim say it means if you take a hammer, you knock on the metal, it will have sparks. So that means that it is lim chumar. Some say that when you close the lights, you're going to see some kind of reddish. But again, that's called lim chumar. Lim kal is a lower level of lim, which is kash nisra. Practical matter, what does it mean? When you take a tissue or a newspaper, which is thin piece of paper, you put it outside of the pot, and it gets it shrinks. That's kash nisra, and that means lim kal. One place the Alter Rebbe writes also yatzoldes boy. The person can say what is the difference when you need yatzoldes boy or not. It depends if it is a blia or you have to burn it lim kal because of a be'en. If it's a be'en, you need to have mamash kash nisra. If it's a nishka be'en, kenazan och yatzoldes boy. So anything which you need hagula, you want to make lim, it's no problem. It's a higher level of kashering. And it will come, we're going to come a little bit later to the Nekidas, where we'll use this kind of halacha that lim kal is good for hagala. So this is the Nekidas of which we need to know. A thing which got absorbed by kuvish, we know kuvish ekimavishul, then you have to have rega hagula. So again, to sum it up, a thing which went in through fire, you need to have lim, and you need to have it lim gomer. A thing which is went in by klirishin, you have to have a gola of hagola klirishin. What is hagola klirishin? Boiling up a pot of water till it becomes boiling, bubbling. And we're going to come to the lochas a little bit later, more prutam. A thing which is a blia through iri is enough iri by pouring. A thing which is klishayni needs to have klishayni. Kemivim, if you want to make the higher level of kashering, that's fine. That's the kids hadvurim. That's all of this is by kailam, which is klaimatchas, etc. Klacheres does not have a heter of eine Yosef Leidafle Oilem, as the Gemara says. Klacheres does not come out the blias. As the Torah writes, it's interesting, the Torah writes in Siman Tuf Chuf Ches that the reason why always before Pesach we learn Parshas Tzav, or in the Iber Yush, Nase Iber, we learn Parshas Metzoira. Because in these two Parshas, we have the Hilchas Hagola. This week we have the Hilchas Hagola. We're going to have a little bit later the Klicheres Yeshuver. And I'm sorry, next week, Parshas Tzav. And if it's Iber, you have the Metzoira regarding the Metzoira, that halachas. So in the Pasuk says Klicheres Yeshuver, because Klicheres nicht kann. There's no way how to take out the beliefs, only one way. By Chazura Lekifshoines. Not even living will help. Chazura Lekifshoines means you put it back into the place how they made it, into that big fiery oven. That will be good enough, because that's already Pon Chadros Bulekan. So as we mentioned before, Lib means the Tzoitzes Nitzen. Sparks are coming. Lim Kal means when it is Kash Nisraf. Now, we cannot, lim has to be only in the keila, which is the way how you got the blia. That means when you have a pot, the fire is in the bottom of the pot. The mashke, the chomot, is inside of the pot. You cannot make liban outside of the pot because the blias came in inside of the pot. So therefore, if you want to kasher a pot through liban, you have to fill it up with gechulam. You have to have a blowtorch, something like that. But just burning the outside is nish. You cannot do that. Now, the Alter Rebbe writes it clearly by Klacheres. When it comes to klimatchis, most of the poskim hold that you could kasher even if the blias are from inside and the fire is outside. Most of the poskim going according to this, and that's why most of the poskim are more lenient on liban, even if the fire is not inside in the pot or in the oven, which we're going to come to over there in a minute. But the Alter Rebbe, bepashtus, I'm saying bepashtus because there are some who wants to say that the Alter Rebbe also holds like that, but bepashtus, we see, the Alter Rebbe holds, even by klimatches, that you have to have the hagula, the libn has to be the way how it got the tam. So if the tam got from inside, you cannot make libn from outside. So therefore, if you have, for instance, let's go straight to the point. If you have an oven which does not have an element inside in the oven, and you want to make libn, according to the Alter Rebbe, it will be a problem because the fire is outside, it's covered, and the inside where the chomets could be does not get libn, and therefore you cannot kasher it. When it comes to self-cleaning oven, that's already a different case, because over there's elements inside too. So automatically, there is also fire inside, and therefore, I would say most of the poskim, I won't say all, most of the poskim will say that the self-cleaning oven can be kashered for Pesach. If you make the whole cycle, it goes up to the degree over 900. You could burn it out, and you could use it for Pesach without putting in anything inside. Kamivan, the rack is kedai that you should cover with silver foil, or change the rack, but and cover the door, the glass with the gasket. Other than that, you could use it like this. When it comes to regular ovens, which doesn't have an element inside, then you got a problem. And therefore, the poskim say that you should use it only after you burn it for an hour on the highest level, and then you put in an insert. Some people put in silver foil all around, but that's not good. It's not healthy for the oven and does not bake. So you could buy inserts, which you put in after making a libn. You still have to put in an insert inside into the oven. But again, that's the Nikida by the Alter Rebbe is more chumar, because the Alter Rebbe, according to Pashtus, you have to have a libn only on the way how it got it in. That means if inside was the blia, you cannot just burn it out from outside, although it gets piping hot. Just to make it clear, hagula means hot water, and we don't use other mashkim. Shar mashkim, it's not hagula. Dafka water. Bedoichik, shasat chagudel, the poskim would rely on the heter of shar mashkim only when you have to do it. For instance, chocolate companies. You cannot kasher a company which makes chocolate, because water is a killer for chocolate. So the way how they kasher it, they put it in chocolate, piping hot, and the first batch they throw away, that's the hagula, and then they use it. So, and this is how the way to do most of the companies. There are bodadim companies which will have separate lines for milchiks, that means which has a problem of kolavakim, or even not, a kapun for morchis a paravan. But again, we only rely on kashen with other things only b'shasat chagud. before Pesach, people have a machine which is called a steamer, which takes off all kind of dirts through hot water, piping hot water. That's good for cleaning, and has nothing to do with Hagala. By the way, before I go further, I see some questions coming in. I cannot read it now. If you could, a little bit later, we have questions and answers. You'll bring it up over there then. Okay. How does Hagala work? How does Hagala work? It's a machlokes rishonim. The Ram says that the water goes into the kli and machlish the blia. That means it weakens the blia. Other poskim say no. It takes out the blia and it takes it out. It takes out the blia. According to the Ram, the water goes into the keli, and so to speak, it weaks it. Then it loses the shem of iser. And most other poskim say that it takes out the blia. The my nafkimina. Nafkimina will be if you have a kela which is ben yoima. So if you're going to kasher a kela ben yoima and the water is going to take out the blias, the water is going to become treif. For instance, if you kasher for treif, or if you kasher for chometz, the water is going to become chometz, and then it will go into the keli again, and you still have a problem because it has a blia. Now, true, it has a schwacher blia, but again, it came out, doesn't have 60 shishim against it, so it doesn't become bottle. Then the blia goes back into the keli. Therefore, it is a problem to kasher a ben yoima. So the poskim say that there's two options. One option is you have shishim. Always you make sure you have 60 times water more than the whole keli, a big pot. Therefore, although the blias come out into the water, since you have shishim, it becomes bottle. And therefore, once it goes back into the pot, it's this bottling one, there's no problem. Other eitzah is it should be eina b'yoima. And that's the minig that we have today. All the kelim has to be eina b'yoima. Because of this reason, if you're going to kasher b'yoima, it's going to come into the water, it's going to go back. If it's eina b'yoima, since the blia is a eina b'yoima, it's a shvacha blia, it's a pugim dige blia, goes back to the kela, I don't have an issue. And that's why we are makbet always to have, when you kasher a sink, a table, whatever it should be, we are makbet that it should be eina b'yoima. And then you don't need to have shishim. We don't care to have shishim. And we don't have takas shishim. We kasher a knife, which became treifa. Yeah, how do you kasher it usually during the year? You take a can of peas, carrots, and corn, whatever it should be, and you boil water, you dip it in. You don't have shishim against the knife, but since it's eina b'yoima, we don't have an issue. According to the Ram, we wouldn't need b'chlal shishim, because he says the water goes inside in mismachlish. But since we passing like the other rishonim, that it takes out the water, so therefore we always need to have or either shishim, or it should be eina b'yoima. When it comes by liba, by the way, you don't need to have it eina b'yoima. Some people are machmer, but rein halacha, since by liba it burns out, it burns out the blias, you don't need to have eina b'yoima, and therefore you don't have to wait. And it's the agעלה masa. Sometimes a person wants to kasher his oven erev shvius, yeah. He wants to kasher it from fleishiks to milchiks or to parav or whatever it should be, and it's erev yontev. It's not eina b'yoima. So since you're talking about liban, you could rely on most persons which say liban do not need to have eina b'yoima because it burns out the blias, and therefore you don't have to wait. It should be 24 hours between using it. When it comes to kashen, it has to be maler sicha. It is not enough. It's yatzoldas boy. It has to be maler sicha. That means it has to be bubbling. It has to be bubbling. Now, it doesn't have to be big bubbles, but it has to be bubbles. And it's very important to know this, because usually when you kasher a lot of kalim, it will happen after a few kalim, the water will stop bubble. Even though it's on the fire, it will stop bubbling. So therefore you have to stop kashering them, cover it, and then you are going to wait till it starts bubbling again, and then you could continue kasher or you can continue kasher. Also, you have to know that the kalim which you kasher has to be dry, because if it's wet, is the coldness of the cold water makes a problem for the malar sichas. Therefore, it has to be dry. Another thing is a very important halacha which people do not realize. When it comes to Hagala, kalim cannot touch each other. We know there's the famous company which is called Ner Mitzvah, which gave us a lot of good things during the year. Chanukah and Pesach and Shavuos and Sikkas and cheesecake and whatever they bring from China, all kind of things which we need for Chagai Yisrael. So they made a whole set of kashering. And it's very good because they have a stone, which we'll talk a little bit in a minute, why we need the stone. And we have a stone you could boil, it has a good handle. Then you have a pitcher which you could boil the water. But then they have also a pot. And in the pot, they have a net, like a basket, which people put in a lot of utensils, and they kasher it like that. But the problem of this is that the utensils usually will touch each other. And when utensils touch each other, there's a problem because the place where it touches does not get hagola. So therefore, you have to make sure if you want to use that basket, you use it only for big kalim, a becher or two, and you have to make sure when it's in the water, you stip it, you make sure that it doesn't touch, then it's a right hagola. But if kalim touches each other, it is a problem according to halach. Now, we mentioned in the beginning of the shiur that anything kabbalah kachpolta. So therefore, when we need to kasher, we have to kasher kabbalah kachpolta. So if you have a table, for instance, a diner table. Now, a dining room table, let me just make it clear, a dining room table, since you always use it only when it's covered, you don't have to do anything. Since you use it only with a tablecloth, Pesach, you use it also with a tablecloth, you don't need to do anything. But when it comes to a diner table, that's already a problem, because a diner table could be a chumatz mamash, because it will happen that people will take out toast and put it on the table. Or you could eat a whole hot pizza and it will slip out of the plate, will touch the table. People, the Rebbenushim Tzidkunis, will take out chalas of the oven and take her out from the pan and put it on the table. All these things makes it that it is, it has to have, it's called kailerishim mamash. So therefore you have to have agula kailerishim mamash. So if you're going to cook and boil a pot of hot water and pour it on top of the table, it's going to be iri klirishim. It's not klirishim, it's going to be iri klirishim. Iri klirishim is a lower darga of klirishim. So the blia was on a klirishim mamash. And when you're going to kasher it, it's going to be iri klirishim. That's a lower darga. So therefore it's not in kasher. So therefore, in order it should stay a kailerishim, again, we mentioned why is it iri a lower level? Because you don't have the hotness of the walls, which is burning hot because it was on the fire. So therefore, the poskim say you take eva meliban. Eva meliban, you have to take, let me make it clear, very clear, because I heard Terefa Marov. Eva meliban means a stone which is boiled, which is melim, like libn. Why do I stress it? Because the Rav told me today that he gave a shiur in Lichas Pesach, and a guy came over to him and said, I always used a brick, but I thought Avim Malib means a Avim which is a malaben, not a stone, a solid stone, only a stone which is a brick. So Eva Malibim means a stone which has a brick stone. So the problem was not only the Eva Malibim did not help, it made kalia. It was a problem because it is cold and it made cold water. So Eva Malibim means you take a stone, you put it on top of the fire, it becomes piping hot, red. Now, when you take the Eva Malibim and you put it right next to the table, don't put it on the counter if you have a microwave because you're going to burn it. You keep it high above a half inch, a quarter of an inch, and you pour the hot water. So what happens? It's like an iri, but since it touches the stone and the table together, the stone keeps on making it hot. It is as if it's on the fire. And that's called Eva Malibim. It makes it for clear rishon. So therefore, we have to make sure a table, or countertops has to be kashed through a Eva Malibim. And you may have to make sure that the water was all over. That means that you take the Eva Malibim, you take it all over around. I gave another solution, if it's more practical, that you pour the water and then you take a unplugged, which you just right away you unplug your iron, and you go through the iron, which is piping hot of the metal, and you go through the water. That's also good enough of Eva Malibim. And this is the way how you kash it countertops, and that's called kashen be'iri beklirishin mamash, because you have the stone. When it comes to Pesach, this is how you kash it. Now, if you kash a table or a countertop which is marble, granite, so once you do this with Eva Malibim, you don't have to cover it at all, because you have the real kash. Hagala klirishin, and it is you could kash it. Kle eitzam you could kash it. Kle even you could kash it. When it comes to Formica, you're going into a problem of a machlokas. If plastic is shaykh to have hagula, if not shaykh to have hagula, I would say most poskim will say it is shaykh to have hagula, but some poskim say they don't. So therefore, even if you kash with Eva Malibim, you should still cover the table or the countertops, because not necessarily it's a proper hagola. Especially, there is a mashmos in Tzemach Tzedek in the Chiva, one of the Chivas of Tzemach Tzedek, which Tzemach Tzedek is mashma, that if you take a challah, which is out of the oven, and you put it on the table mamash, that's even more than a klirishin. That's even like alu aish mamash. Now, all the poskim do not say such a thing. Tzemach Tzedek is also not clear. So therefore, it is kedai in such a case to cover it. And therefore, if you cover it in any case, if you make double covers, you don't need to kash it to begin with. Because once you have double cover and you make sure that it's good sealed, that means it won't tear, it won't come water between it won't have holes. So therefore, it's not a problem, because it is shloish nois naitam. Yeah, it's 3 times nois naitam. The tam of chumatz goes into the counter. The counter takes out the blia into the water which is between the counter and the cover, and it goes into the cover. So therefore, ba'etzim one cover should be fine. The Chassam Sofer writes that we have always a chashash that it will tear, or so therefore he says you should always have 2 covers, and it is fine. Now, covers, what considers a cover? Anything and everything. Silver foil, even the second cover could be even a plastic tablecloth. If it's a second cover, that means the first cover you put something thick, a cardboard or whatever you have, and on top of it you put a silver foil, good sealed. That means it shouldn't, because in a table it could go water underneath, or you have a plastic silver tablecloth, even though it's thin, but you tape it around good. That's considered 2 covers. I feel that if you have the new kind of plastic, which is double-headed, that should also be considered a two covers. But the only problem is for the sides. So therefore, in any case, it's kedai to cover it with a plastic because the sides will always go in water. So again, if you make 2 covers, you don't need the covers to begin with. So when it comes to countertops or counter tables, kitchen tables, which is made from mica, then the best thing will be you cushion it and then you cover it. But if you cover it twice, then you could get away with that too. I'll stop here for a minute because I see there's some questions coming in, and if you want to ask, go over the questions that you had before we go further, you can unmute the people that if they have some questions, because I couldn't read it while talking.
Why did you say that we should unplug the iron before using it?
First of all, because it's dangerous. The main thing. If you have you could plug it in and keep it as a vadigit, but it's not practical. It's very dangerous.
How long could you still assume that it's still hot enough?
How long? The metal or stone will stay long for a while. That means, again, it depends. Once you do the table, if you want to do a countertop again, you should put it back on the fire again for some time.
Also, when you use the brick, Ner Mitzvah sells you a brick.
Yes.
How do you know if it's hot enough and if it cooled down already from the water that you're pouring over it?
Again, when you see it's good enough, you'll see it becomes the wire around the stone will become reddish, some kind of reddish, and you're going to see on the stone that it's really piping hot. Usually, I let it cook. Being on the fire is probably for over an hour.
Mm-hmm. When you use that thing, I used it. You have the wire. It comes in like this the thing to hold it with through the wires. But then the stone is not actually touching the.
We don't need the stone to touch the table. I need that the water, when you pour it on the stone, the same water, the splash will be on the water and it will be on the table. That's what I need.
Mm-hmm. And if you're doing a sink, so you're doing a sink, a metal sink. So you have the walls of the sink, you put the stone and you pour the water in between the stone and the sink.
Yes, you put it on the stone and the stone the water will go on the stone and on the sink. Slowly from the bottom till the top. Okay, so let me read some questions. Why do you need to cover the tracks in a self-cleaning oven? Only to be machmer on the poskim, which say that it could be that that's a place where they have direct contact with the chomutz. That means people will put in direct, let's say, a piece of challah, a piece of, will be direct on that rack. And therefore, I want to be machmer on the people who want to say that could be that since the chomutz was direct on that metal, and it gets kashed only by heat, which I have no issue with it. But again, Rafarkash has an issue with it. So therefore, I always say the racks which come direct in contact with the chomutz, it is kedai that you should cover it or change it. What's considered a cover? Does it need to have a certain thickness? As I mentioned, no, it doesn't need to have, but it has to be so that it shouldn't get torn, because if it gets torn, it gets a hole and the water goes in between, that's the problem. We want that it shouldn't be, it shouldn't get torn. And that's why if you have double, even if the top one gets a hole, it's nicht gefährlich. Is silver foil, then is foil, then tablecloth 2 covers? Yes. 2 covers is two covers, but it has to be good sealed. No water should go through. The poil, how hot is living cow? It's very difficult to say, but when it comes to kasher between milchiks and fleishiks, we rely on even non-self-cleaning oven. That means if a person has all year round, it doesn't have a self-cleaning oven, and he wants to kasher it to milchiks or fleishiks, and or for parva again, just let me digress a second. The halacha is that you cannot kasher kalim, you cannot kasher kalim memilchs and fleishiks. You make it or parva for a while, and then you change it, or you make it reif. That's halacha because you're going to come to problems. When it comes to Liban, a lot of poskim, even I would say the majority of poskim say that doesn't apply. So therefore, we could kasher a malabim from milchiks to fleishiks. Again, it's kedai that right after you changed it, a fleishik oven to milchiks, you should right away be malabim it again because you can forget. That will be a problem. So you do it right away afterwards. And as we mentioned before, when it comes to lim, you don't have to make eine bayoim. So what?
When you kasher a sink, do you kasher the faucet first or the sink first?
When you kasher the faucet, when you kasher the sink, what do you do first? Good question. Now, if you're going to kasher the faucet first, you can have a problem of using it in hot water and you have to wait another 24 hours. So usually I say kasher the sink first, and once the sink is kasher, then you're going to kasher the faucet, and the chonishkan problem, because afterwards, once the sink is kasher already, and you poured you put in afterwards, you put in the sink some kind of cold water, and then when the water we kasher the faucet, the water goes down, goes into cold water. So usually,
yeah, but it's a problem that the water's treif is going in the kasher sink. You just kasher the sink.
But no, it's not. It's not a problem because it's eine bayoim already, as I mentioned before.
Got
you always eine bayoim, sinks, tables, everything is eine bayoim. And when it comes in water which falls into the cold water. You open a little bit the sink, you let in some cold water, so then you won't have a problem. But even if it happens like that, since it's eine bayoim, I have no problem. It goes in we have no issue of it.
So when you're dealing with an iron, is it possible to use an iron and a water for the sink?
Iron and water?
For a sink, because the walls, it's like not like, is it shy to do such a thing, or?
I know it's not shy because the water will not stay on a table. The water stays. You could put on the iron, but when it comes to a sink, the water doesn't stay. So therefore, you have to use a stone.
Could you heat up a stone on an electrical stove, or it has to be on a gas? Like
you can do it on anyone as long as it gets piping hot. It's a matzias. If it gets really, really hot, and therefore you have no issue. That's why we paskin that you could kasher water which you got with water which got boiled by a gas or by electric. We have no issue. It became by electric. There are some who want to be machma, but we are not machma on these things. So
can you pour the water onto the iron and then into the sink? Can you pour the water on the iron and then into the sink?
You could, same as a stone, but again, I don't know if it's practical because the most of the iron is not metal. So by a stone, you could pour hot water. Over here, half of the iron is plastic. It's not a practical thing to do, kasher a sink with an iron. I used to say a different way how to do it. But that's, you have to know if you have more than one stone. I used to say, put in a towel in the sink, fill it up with sink water, hot water. That means let it hot water should go in, and then throw in a couple of stones. I didn't want to say today's day because a plumber told me that today's day the boilers are made not to be piping hot water, and I'm not sure how many stones you need to put in order it to become mamash malababiyas. Once upon a time, you could have water from the boiler which was really piping hot, and then you threw in a stone or two, the whole sink, where you filled up the whole sink, and you threw in a stone or two, mamash setungam kochen. I don't know, Teresa, if it's practical. It depends what boils. Therefore, I don't say it anymore. The best thing will be the old-fashioned way that you have a stone. And again, it's much easier today because we have these kind of stones in the cages. Therefore, that's the way how to kasher the sinks.
I don't understand why today with the sink it's so easy to do a walibbon kahal with a small blowtorch. Why even go through this whole?
Okay, you could do that. If you go have a blowtorch, you go through every part of the sink, and it's hot, sold this boy, mamash through the fire, and even more, you could do that way.
Yeah, much easier.
You have to be careful. The drain shouldn't be plastic, but like whatever type of.
Exactly. And also, after you kasher the sink, it's very important that you have to spill inside Mr. Plumber or all these sharp things, chemical things, and let it keep like overnight, because over there you can have be'en. Sometimes in the drain you will have be'en, and through nitzek, chibur, you can have a problem. So therefore you put in real duvar apoigem, and it will be wonderful.
Could you warm up the stone on a chametz stick a stove, or you have to actually have a pesach like the stone? Do you want to use? It's going to get chametz stick. Is it a problem?
Again, no, you burn the when you burn it up. Usually I use it on a pesach stove because I keep everything pesach. But again, you can do it on a pesach, but then you have to first put on the fire to burn out the grates, because the grates, according to the Alter Rebbe, is very chumar. According to Mishnah Berurah, is very easy. According to the Alter Rebbe, grades are very chumar, because over there could be chumas mamash, a noodle could be over there, and it goes in through aish mamash, so they have to burn it out. According to Mishnah Berurah, it says you have no issue because it always gets burned out.
If you do it on a pesach, you have to kasher it after, no? If you do it on a pesach, if you warm up the stone, but you're using it before.
No, you have the mitzvah kashing top. Why you have to kash?
Because it touches the chametz, the counters. If it touches the counters, then you're putting it back on, and then back and forth. Not a problem.
What? No, it touches the counter when it takes out the blias, and it's ein b'yoyim again. It's also always ein b'yoyim.
Got it.
Would you be what?
To clarify, what exactly are we kashering for? When we kasher an oven, why are we kashering the oven? What are we worried about? And what are we considering? The material of the oven, is that considered cheres? Is that considered matches? What are we considering?
The oven is considered matches. Our oven is considered matches. And therefore we could say you can have lim. If it will be klacheres, you can kasher it. It's a matches which could have lim. Why are we kashering it? Because you bake chalas over there, and you could have pieces of challah falling in, or even blias by heat. You could bake over there cakes, or you could have all kind of chametz things which gives out a blia or zaya, which could have mamash be'en too. So therefore we need to be malabanit. Now, self-cleaning ovens, again, as I mentioned, you make a cycle, and it is the problem because it gets very, very hot. Other ovens, you used to be more Michael, because they used to say that you could dismantle. Some people who know how to do it, they could dismantle a thermostat, and therefore it could go up all the way very hot till 900 degrees. But today's day, it's not that easy. And also, I hold that even if you could dismantle it, not necessarily submitted to do it, because it's still going in the chashash of chayes. We know I have halacha that one of the problems of a thing which you have always a problem that it's going to bust, that you're not kasher, because you always chayes that it's going to break, and therefore you're not doing it proper hagula. So therefore, when it comes to ovens, even though if you can make some kind of trick, you will always be afraid it's going to break, because it's not made. There's a reason why they make it. It should only go up to, I think, 450 to 500. I don't remember exactly how much it goes. There's a reason why. So therefore, I'm not sure that even if you can make it going higher, it will be kosher, because you have the problem of chayes.
If you have a hot water,
you have what?
You have a hot water heater that stays plugged in when you pour it.
Okay.
Would that be considered a clearation?
That's considered clearation, yes. But when you pour it on the table, no, that won't help, because again, we don't want to have the tfamas and chamams. When it's poured in, alles fine of oil. But when you pour it, it goes out of the kli, and that's already doesn't have the tfamas. When it comes, it's only iri, so it won't help.
Well, if you're pouring it very, very close to the counter, why is it different than the oven? If it's mamish boiling, because it's still plugged in.
It's plugged in.
Yeah.
Again, if when you pour it in the water touches the table, it also touches the urn, then you might be right. But I don't know if it's practical, if you can do such a thing. Because I want, if it is like that, it touches at the same time the water, b'shas when it touches the table, it still touches the urn, then I would say that's called Ev Malibim, because Ev Malibim does not have to be Even, it could be a piece of metal. Yeah, it could be a cobalt, which comes piping hot. So the urn, which is also metal, in Marokgit, but it's but pashtus, it won't happen. It can't happen. Pashtus practically it won't happen.
Because they have these things that are one piece, and if you put it in an extension cord, so it stays plugged in, and it's boiling as you're pouring it. Especially the same water that's boiling is being poured onto the counter.
So again, is the water mechiber with the pot and on the table?
Yeah,
it's mechiber with the pot and the table. The drop which is on the table is mechiber to the mechiber to
just for the first few pours. For the first few pours, it would be. Then when it gets a little water, then wouldn't be as.
Okay, so the first rule I would say is that shouldn't be a problem.
Right.
When it's still connected inside, yeah. There's a lot more to talk about Hagala. I don't know if we want there should be mamshich over there or just get to the questions which they sent in.
I just want to have one more question. You said before about the countertop.
Yeah.
To put on a formica countertop to cover it. The same thing applies also the whole year.
A non-kosher countertop, if you cover it.
Yeah.
Yes. If you cover it twice, yes.
No, and if you kashered it, then you cover it once.
Then I say you could cover it once.
And that one cover has to have a thickness, or even plastic is good.
Again, ich will machmer sein also that you should have a cover, because to be chayish of the poskim, which say that not necessarily could be kasher, so you have still a cover. And ich dachte, being choishish that maybe it will tear, well, it's kasher, the most possible.
So one cover is fine.
If you kasher it with Ev Malim, one cover should be fine. Yeah. Okay, so let me just go to a couple of questions which you had sent in before and address it, which has not necessarily to do with Pesach. The first thing I will go to a Pesach question is, how does one kasher knives for Pesach? Now again, first of all, today's day, Achshadura, if you can have knives special for Pesach, you do that. We don't use b'derech klal, befrat minik Chabad, we know that. We don't use things which was chomesdik, and you kasher it. But according to halacha, you could kasher it today's day by putting it in a clear rishon alvaish, it is gekasher. Now you have some kind, you have to make sure it's clean, 100% clean. And if it's not clean, the Alter Rebbe says, then you can make libon, kal on the places where there might be a be'en. But if it's clean, you put it in, you dip it into, it's eine beyoima, you dip it into a keli, which is on the ice, and that's fine. We don't have a problem today's day of the plastic melting. Plastic does not melt today's day in hot water. So even you have a plastic knife, we don't have this issue of chayes. It's such a way that we don't have an issue. So you could cash it the regular way, in a clear issue. But again, the meaning is that we have separate kelim for Pesach, and you don't use the chumzi can, but you could cash it. Another question: how exactly should one kasher a microwave? You don't kasher a microwave for Pesach. A microwave is a very tough thing to kasher at all year round, and if it became a real treifa, I say throw it away. You cannot kasher it. Some poskim will say you put in a cup, you evaporate. It is a big problem because the problem of be'en. If you ever dismantle a microwave, you're going to see they have holes, and you have mamash grease. And if you have a microwave which was treifa, it's impossible to kasher. And I have this question all year round. People buy new houses, goyisha houses. You cannot kasher a microwave. If, for instance, you have a flashing microwave and it happened, you put in something, a milking thing, and it's covered, then we will rely on this. You put in a cup and you let it evaporate after a couple of minutes, because lav dafkes do that at the end from the other food which you had. That means if it's a fleshy of, not necessarily it will have milk because it was only happened once. But if it is mamash a fatty thing or whatever, it's microwave is a problem, a serious problem all year round. If a Pesach, you don't cash it at all a microwave. You invest $100, $150 for a Pesach microwave and you don't cash it. Can one kasher oven for Pesach? As I mentioned before, if it's a self-cleaning oven, you could kasher it. If it's a non-self-cleaning oven, you don't kasher it. If it's a non-self-cleaning oven, I say you put it on for an hour and a half on the highest level, and then you put in an insert. Today's day, not today's day, it's already when I was a child, you could buy an insert which you put in the oven. After it went through this Liban, we will rely to use it when you put in an insert, but without an insert, we will not rely on it. Some people will cover it all the way with silver foil, but that's the solution after Liban. But it will kill your oven and it won't bake good, so therefore it's not an option.
Would you say the same thing for a commercial ovens?
No, I wouldn't say for a commercial. It has different halakhas. I'm talking now on a private house. I don't want to go into commercial because that's a whole new ball game. It's complicated, and for a commercial kashering, you need to have a mimcha to do it. And the major companies and the major hotels, you have to have a reliable person to kasher when it comes to events when you do it over there. There are some mimcham, there are some famous mimcham, which I know them, and they dismantle these things and they know how to clean it. But you can a normal person, even a Tam Truchim, will not be able to kasher a commercial kitchen. Question. Do we ever rely on the heter of the Chacham Tzvi of 12 months for a kli cheres? A very good question. The poskim do not agree with the Chacham Tzvi, as we know, because the Chacham Tzvi is a very, very big killer. But there are rare occasions which they're going to use it. There are going to be any rare occasion. Let me see where I saw the poskim say.
So what do we say about gebrachs to wait a year?
I can't hear you. What do you say?
By gebrachs, we say to wait a year from Pesach because then it's fine. How does that work?
By what?
By Pesach for gebrachs.
Okay, because it's only a chimra. The reason is only because it's only a chimra. Only because of that. And there are people who take a kasher every year. If it's not an ibayur, they will kasher their kelim again. They won't rely on it if they didn't kasher it. There are such a poskim. But we rely on it only because it is only a chimra, and therefore, we get away. When do we need this? When do we use this question, klecheres? It is a klecheres which you fell in a mashi chumatz. When a mashi chumatz fell in Pesach, now mashi chumatz is osir, so we don't need it at Pesach. But then we will rely next year Pesach on a mashi chumatz. We will rely on Chacham Tzvi. Again, it's not practical, but people will kasher it. But over there is the Kiva Aigi brings down a simcha chuvuv. In such a case, you could rely on the Chacham Tzvi, and but you have to make sure if it happens beginning of Pesach and end of Pesach, you want to use it in beginning of Pesach, you don't have 12 months, so then you have a problem. Also, the Igros Moshe in Heilig Hai Simalamad Bais will say that the Klech Tzchichis, we could rely on such a thing, because after all, Klech Tzchichis, a lot of persons say there's not a Belia, but usually we don't rely on such things of the Chacham Tzvi. Even 12 months, we are not going to be Michael, except for gebrachs, since the whole thing is only a chimra. A question: should we be asking shalas and all about shir poisek or only about shir bonim? Now the answer is most of the halachas we have the same Torah, but there are some halachas which is different. Al Rebbe is machmer than other poiskim. For instance, as I mentioned before, kashering metal kalim, not on the side which got the blias, or other things also. And there are also some halachas which Alter Rebbe is a big Michael more than other poskim. So again, preferable you stick to a Lubavitch Sharov. But again, if you have no option, or pinked, you don't have a rov, you could ask other Rabbonim, and after all, the Chalikim will be only by the Rabbonans, and if you're going to pass like other poskim, is auch nicht gefährlich, but again, Pashtus a Lubavitch Yid, which goes according to the Alter Rebbe's Psukim, should ask a Lubavitch rov. Now the question is a cute question. What is the difference between a rov and a posik? Oh, this question is a loaded question, but basically a big chilik. A rov is most of Shlichei Chabad, which I take off my hat for them, are Rabbonim in their city. Yeah, he's the chief rabbi in this city, he's the chief rabbi of this state, he's the chief rabbi of this country, but not necessarily a poskim. The Rebbe always used to say to ask a rov, which is a posik halucha lamaisa, because a rov can have smicha and learn a lot, but all these things you forget. If you don't have practical shilas, and if you don't constantly do shilas, you are going to forget what you learned. So therefore, a rov is a very good thing. We need rabbonim, but the rov a posik is something. When it comes to shilas, you have to have a rov with posik lamaisa. You could have rabbonim which are also poskim, but you could also have poskim which are not necessarily the rabbonim. So that's the big chilik of a rov and a posik. Can one use fleischige knife to cut onions and use for fish? Okay, a very nice question. Pashtus halacha, we have a halacha that blias, we don't have a problem of skun. That means if you have a pot which you cooked meat, you could cook fish in the same pot, even if it's a ben yoim, because it's only a blia. Yesh mukim l'hachmer, the Lando family, Rav Lando's family are machmer because they say that the Rebbe Shmuz Eiden, the Rebbe Shab was machmer, but that's a chimra. Strictly halacha, it is a pot which is ben yoime, you could use also for fish. So, but the minig Yisrael is today's day, most of the people have a fish pot. That means, not like the Landos, that means they kasher, the mamash, but at least they have like a triller, they have a fish pot, and that's dedicated dafka for fish. So therefore, the question is, could you use a knife, which is a fleischige knife, cut the onion, which basically an onion is like a real tam, and use it for fish? Me'iker rein halucha, you are permitted to do that, but again, as the minig Yisrael is that you have a separate fish pot, you don't use. You will have a separate knife, part of a knife to cut it, and if you did use it, nicht gefährlich. What else? Can one kasher a convection oven? No. Also goes into problems because there's no element inside. So again, I don't know how hot it gets. No. I have a time for another question because afterwards I need to go down Ma'ariv. So is there any question which someone want to bring up?
Why don't we say,
again?
Go ahead.
why don't we say Chamidas Akanta be Surah by fish and meat?
Because the poskim say there isn't a sekanta by blias, only a be'en. This is the Friedige poskim talking about this question already. But again, in Slabavitch is do Indian mukam lahachma to have a separate pot and a separate pot for sure because that's a mini command of the whole world. But Bechlal, if the Rebbe Rashab was machmer, again, as Chasidim, it's kedai to be machmer. But again, the landos will kasher and make ibedrai nevel. This is a thing which you don't have to do.
But the knife is only for the onions. For the regular fish, it's not charif. Is that correct?
Again, what? Yeah, for the fish not charif because so nicht die ganzen so, because once it depends if you first put in the onions and it gets boiled and then you put in the fish, you're right. Because after you're putting it in is zwiebel with some vishel or matigen, it loses its charif.
No, I meant
what's the temperature of liban kal and liban chamer according to the Rav?
Liban chamer is again also a machloikes of achroinam. Rabbi Shimon was machma 212. The Matthias is that today's day.
Liban chamer, not agala.
What? Oh, you read Liban gomer. Liban gomer is they say about 600-700 at least. Liban kal is much lower. That's why.
What would you say? What would you say is the minimum for liban kal, and what's the minimum for liban gomer?
Nochmal, the Alter Rebbe says liban kal is the other side should be Yatzolas boy. So you're
talking actual temperatures.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer you. In temperature.
But the Alter Rebbe says two different temperatures. Sometimes kash and sometimes Yatzolas way.
This is what I mentioned in the beginning. Yes, and the poskim say that it's a difference if you have a chashash of a be'en also or only a belia. Pashtus is mashma. If you have only a belia, then you could rely on the tzad shiny should be yat soldas boy. Only if you have a chashash of a belia, if you look good in the Alter Rebbe, if you have a chashash of a mashi chumatz, like the Alter Rebbe has the whole halacha of patches over there. Yeah, you came to that halacha already? Did you learn that halacha? The patches on over there, don't do the Alter Rebbe that you have to have kash nisra. So the post will say it's a difference if it has a be'en, some kind of be'en, or not a be'en. That's the difference of the two boiling points what the Alter Rebbe writes. But in Fahrenheit, I don't know exactly how much it is. I assume the tres poskim were right, but when it comes to Hagola Mamash, Rabbi Shimon was machma 212. Lamaisa, I checked it already. It will be, I would say 108. It will be real Hagola.
108?
By Hagola. You talking about Hagola? You talking about Agala,
not just what you just said.
208.
I'm sorry, 208. Yeah.
And what shot in Tafnon Aleph, when it's saying about kashering the knives in Tafnon Aleph, it says that even if it's not on the fire, and then I think in the Magen Avram or the Taz, it says as long as it's Yatsi Ladisbay to do Hagala for knives. What shot that has a more kodik share?
Of what again? What did it say?
In Siman Tafnon Aleph.
Yeah.
It says for knife, the Mechaber writes that you need to have even if it's not on the fire anymore, as long as it's still reteach.
Yeah, but the Alter Rebbe holds that Hagola does not need to be on the fire. This is, by the way, a klal which you have to know. The Alter Rebbe says if it's mala babis, it doesn't have on the fire mamash. So
yeah, but it says, the I don't remember if it's the Magen Avram or the Taz that says even if it's hayatzi, as long as it's still hayatzi ledusbay.
As long as
it's still Yatzer Ledusbay.
No, but the Alter Rebbe writes Kashnis over here by this thing.
No, I'm talking about by Hagala.
No.
By the Sakinim, it says that you could do Hagala even if it's not on the fire, as long as it's still hot and as long as it's still Yatzer Ledusbay. And you don't need Abba boys.
Where does the Alter Rebbe say such a thing?
I'm saying what in the Mechaber.
Magen Avram says such a thing, but the Alter Rebbe always.
In the Magen Avram that says Yatzer Ledusbay.
And it means
Alter Rebbe is more Machmer. What?
And it means Yatzer Ledusbay, not Mala Babias.
That's what it says, eh?
No, the Alter Rebbe doesn't go like that. The Alter Rebbe schreibt as alles das Mala Babias. I don't remember. It should be Yatzer Ledusbay should be for knives fine.
Also check from it seems to be Mala Babues when it's off of the age. And you put something
the first second of the what?
But I thought we said we need a shear of a few seconds to do agala. What's the shear? How long does the kli have to be inside?
A second. Doesn't have to be long. Doesn't have to be long. It's no difference.
Okay. And I'm saying, and what about if it's a bigger kli? Automatically, it's going to cool down. So you're saying only something very small will be malababuis. But if you take a bigger
it's not a practically once it's off the fire. Once it's off the fire, if it's but
So then,
what?
so then, what's the mechaber writing that the magilam beklidishin or klidishin nikra shertichul b'mayim al eish afilu einei at al eish raksha idenu reteach.
Reteach means bubbling. Exactly.
But well, so then the Magen Avraham says shayadenu reteach means shayatzila display, which is way colder.
It's what?
Shayatzila display is a lot less than bubbling. It already cooled down.
Is less, but the Alter Rebbe doesn't mention such a thing. The Alter Rebbe doesn't think.
Okay.
Alter Rebbe always has to be a malababias. There's no such thing as kashan just because of yatzalzbe. No such a thing. Always has to be malababias. It could be the Alter Rebbe lent aranas was the Magen Avraham zukt. Means yatzalzbe might och malababias. But again, kazanish. The Alter Rebbe masa halt as there's no such thing as kashan if it's not malababias. And again, it's not almost kamat matzias that it should be not on the fire and should be malababias. It could happen for a minute or two, but that's about it.
So that's my question. Why the mechaber is writing, even if it's off of the fire, like monashach, if once it's off the fire, it's cooling down.
Yeah, but if
it sounds like that, according to the mechaber, it could be a lot colder. It's mistaber that if you're saying it could be off the fire, it makes sense. It should be less than a babois and yatzil as long as it's yatzila display.
Oh, but the Alter Rebbe itself writes it should be malababias, and the Alter Rebbe said it could be even another raish. So the Metzias is practically it won't happen only for half a minute.
Right.
So he says the locha, but bepoil in practical takim is gerecht. It's only possible to do if you have one keli, a small keli, you take off and you put it on. That's the Metzias. The andere so, the Alter Rebbe mit the Shechanor zoeken the Dahluchen. Bepoil Metzias wise, it's very tough. It should happen. Because even alo aish is you're putting in a kilo or two, and you're gonna have this problem.
Okay, yes,
okay. I'll need to go. Zatz magazine. In was a maslich an Limit Teure. Gold